Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're just waiting for the clock to kind of tick over to 1:30, and then we'll get stuck in. Graham and I can't wait to tackle the topic of trust and what that means. So we're really, like I say, really looking forward to diving into this and getting some of your context, some of your thoughts as we go along as well. So if you've got a second, just drop in the chat where you're dialing in from today, because that's really cool to see where people are joining us from. So welcome Lindsay, welcome Kim. I think I've already dropped that into the chat already. So welcome everybody. So let's get stuck in, shall we? So Graham and I are going to walk you through this topic of trust, and in particular what it means as far as high performing teams are concerned, because inevitably high performing teams are founded on trust. So a warm welcome to what is our final webinar of 2024. So far this year, we've covered what it means to be a leader, what leaders should actually be doing, effective teams, and mindset. And we've been blown away by the support we've had for all of these topics. So thank you to those that have joined us on those. And today's topic on trust is just as crucial, and like I've said, plays a central part to any high performing team. So let's take a look at the plan, shall we? So what's the plan? Well, over the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to explore why trust is so important. We're going to explore how to build trust at 3 levels, and that'll be individual, team, and organization. We'll provide practical tips and tricks to build trust at these levels. And we'll leave some time at the end for questions, so you get some time to contextualize this from your perspective. If you stick around to the end, we're going to share how you can get your hands on our very own trust toolkit, which will ensure that you start the new year either as you mean to go on, in other words, building on existing foundations you've got, or establishing the foundations of your own high-performing team. There's also an added Christmas bonus that we've added in there as well, so stick around for that. And we're going to get your perspective as we go along. So we've got Slido set up to capture your thoughts in a couple of areas. If you do have questions, which you're highly likely to, we certainly hope you will, drop them in the chat as we go along. But it'd be really cool, really helpful if you could add a queue at the start, because what that means is we can look and find them really easily in that chat. And feel free to pop any comments in the chat as we go along as well. That's always really nice to hear from you guys as we go along. So let's move on to give you a little bit about Thinking Focus, who we are. So for those that don't know, Thinking Focus is all about behavior change. We put mindset at the center of everything we do. And that's because individuals and teams who have self-belief find a way to overcome obstacles. They adopt a win or learn mindset, viewing failure as part of the journey. And they can reframe their attitude to problems by choosing a solution-focused mindset. They test assumptions, challenge biases, and overcome self-imposed limitations. And they're proactive and constructive when challenging their organization to be better. And we see many teams struggle with this. So whatever they want to achieve, whatever you want to achieve, improve or grow, we will always start by helping you and your teams get out your own way first and foremost. That means you can focus on properly what you want to have, what you want to become, what you want to achieve. And we've been doing that since 2016. In that time, we've probably delivered to over 10,000 participants. We've done probably over 5,500 hours of one-on-one coaching too. And that's across probably 160, 170 organizations that we've been working with. So we've kind of got a little bit behind, as you can see, some of the brands that we've worked with along the way. So I'm going to hand you over to Graham, who's going to pose you a little question.
Yeah, thanks, Ricky. As Ricky mentioned earlier, we're going to get you involved a couple of times this afternoon. So time to grab your phone. If you scan the QR code that's on the screen now, what we'd like to do is to get your thoughts on this question. So what would you say is the impact of a low trust environment at work? And we're going to create a bit of a word cloud, so you can add in as many words as you want. The more the merrier. We'll give you a kind of a minute or so to do that. So what would you say is the impact of a low trust environment at work? Share your thoughts with us now, please.
Great. We've already got somebody involved. That's brilliant. Thank you. Once you get one started, we get other people.
We're getting a couple now, yeah.
Great.
So we're starting to come in. So we've got dishonest feedback straight away is on the screen, and unhappy staff, unhappy people are two of the things that we see as impacts of low trust. We've got another person typing. Waste of resources. So if we haven't got trust, stuff gets wasted in some shape or form.
Got some more people contributing as well, which is great. Unproductive staff, missed deadlines. Yeah, absolutely. Poor relationships. Really crucial, and we'll come on to talk a bit more about some of that stuff a bit later as well. So
another one's popped up around miscommunication. Look like there might be one more typing at the going, but yeah, one more participant typing at the moment. Yeah, people going in different directions.
Yeah. We see that quite a bit.
I think we can see that, can't we? There's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different things on the screen, but certainly nothing good coming of low trust environments at work.
Okay, let's move on then. So let's look at the facts. Look at some of the facts that underpin what you guys have already said in terms of low trust environments. So Gallup research tell us that companies with low employee engagement, that's more often than not linked to low trust, experience 18% lower productivity. They also go on to say that 16% that profitability suffers by as much as 16% in when you compare it to high engagement environments. And of course, that's probably going to contribute to turnover rates and employees leaving due to dissatisfaction or a lack of confidence in leadership. And the Society for Human Resource Management say that the cost of replacing an employee, the cost alone can be up to 50 to 60% of their annual salary. But when you factor in, there's probably a decline in performance in the lead up to them leaving. There's probably a period while you're recruiting and replacing, and then there's the ramping up of the new person filling that void. When you actually total that up, actually total associated costs can be from 90 to 200%, which is just phenomenal. And a low trust environment can negatively affect a business, and that's going to impact employee morale, customer loyalty, financial performance, and overall competitiveness. Investing in and maintaining trust, therefore, is not just beneficial, it's essential for sustainable success and growth. So let's have a look at pillars of trust. So we said we were going to look at 3 levels, the first of which is individual. And there's been loads written on this. There's lots of research done, and we've looked at a lot of that research. But what's clear is 2 common elements appear. You either get trust of the head or trust of the heart. So you're playing with both of these. And trust of the head is about competence and task. Do I trust you to do your job? Trust of the heart is about relationships. In other words, it's about, do I trust you to have my back? And that actually plays out in some of the work that we've discovered from a lady called Frances Frey and Anne Morris, who have built on this. And they talk about 3 distinct yet interrelated elements of this. So first is authenticity. Are we seeing the real you, or are you faking it? And one of the things we know is human beings, we're really good at working out whether somebody's being authentic or not. We have a spidey sense that kind of works out whether this feels right. And that's exactly us testing for that authenticity. Next up is empathy. And effectively, do I feel like you care about me? Do you care? Do you listen? And I mean really listen. Do you make me feel safe? Think about the last time your manager was talking to you, but was distracted by their phone. So you knew straight away they weren't focused on you. But be mindful, are you doing that with your people as well? The third element of this is logic. Do I believe what you're saying? Do you make sense? Does your argument stack up? So we're looking at effectively 2 strands here. So the connection between authenticity and empathy is where effective trust sits. This is your trust of the heart. This is where you're going to decide how you value the relationship. And trust, when someone makes you feel valued and takes time to understand you, particularly when they show vulnerability, and that's when effective trust can emerge. But effective trust, this trust of the heart, takes time. It takes time to build and requires you to put some effort in. It's not something that comes easy. And then what we've got is essentially the relationship between authenticity and logic, which is the cognitive trust, the trust of the head. And what we're really testing is what you're saying, is it holding together? And you're more likely to trust a leader who presents a clear, logical plan and acts in a consistent manner. And you feel like they're being honest. The cognitive side is typically much more it's quicker and easier to build because it's transactional. I'm judging what I see. Am I seeing consistency? I can evaluate that what you're saying makes sense. And you'll be doing that right now in terms of what Graham and I are sharing. And does this make sense? Does this stack up? And if you ask yourself, how often have you been in front of a leader who said something that you've later discovered wasn't true? Or they stood up and told everyone that everything's going to be fine, yet you knew there was a change imminent. And that's going to affect our ability to trust people. Let's have a look then how we build effective trust. Effective trust is about care and empathy, centering, like we've said, on the relationship. If you need to work on your relationship with someone, here are 3 practical things that you can do. Number 1, take time to check in with them. And this is more than just a cursory ask at the end or beginning of a call, or an ask without feeling. You need to tune in. What's going on? How are you doing? Number 2, listen. And I mean, really listen to them. Put your phone down, close your laptop, turn off distractions and listen. Because your focus here is not to respond, but to understand. Be supportive of their goals. Look for opportunities to check on progress. This is number 3, by the way. Be supportive of their goals. Look for opportunities to check on progress, celebrate wins, but more importantly, find out what you can do to help. 3 things that I really love, I found from a book called Super Communicators by Charles Duhigg. And he basically has 3 quick questions. Do you want me to listen? Do you want some help? Or do you want a hug? And I think metaphorically in today's world of work, but essentially, do you want some TLC? You can build this by trying, say things like, sounds like that project is important to you. Sounds like you're having a challenge with this. Feels like you could do with some help. And then, of course, follow that up with, what do you need from me? So that's how you can build effective trust. So let's now look at how you can build cognitive trust, this trust of the head. Well, if you need to work on your cognitive trust, there are 3, again, practical things you can do. Number 1, stick to deadlines. Do what you say you'll do. This is about consistency. Deliver results and take accountability is number 2. Make it happen. This is all about competence. And finally, number 3, have a clear plan. But before you share it, test it with someone, ensure that it's robust, invite them to pull it apart so that you know it stacks up. And this is all about having clarity. So that's 3 practical things you can do in terms of building cognitive trust.
Shall we take a look at trust in teams now then, and think about the things from a team dynamics point of view?
I think that's a really good idea, Graham.
And so we've chosen here to lean on the work of someone called Patrick Lencioni, who did some work on dysfunctional teams. And it highlights 5 key challenges, all of which are rooted in trust. And if we break these down, then let's start with, at the bottom kind of the pyramid you see on the screen, is an absence of trust. And this is kind of the foundation stone, if you like. What it means if there's an absence of trust is team members don't feel safe to be vulnerable. They hide mistakes, they hide weaknesses or concerns because they don't want to be judged by people around them. What it looks like is people avoiding asking for help or admitting they don't know something, which blocks honest collaboration between teams or within the team or between teams. Secondly, we move on and we're looking at a fear of conflict. So what the fear of conflict means is without trust, teams avoid healthy debates. They fear disagreements, and that ultimately is going to harm our relationships. What that looks like is team members will stay silent in meetings. They won't say things. They fake agreement and let any important issues slide. As we move up, the next one is a lack of commitment. What we see here is what it means is there's no healthy conflict. And actually in organizations, if there's no healthy conflict, decisions feel like they're imposed on us and people don't fully buy in to what's being put forward. What it looks like is team members will be leaving your meetings unclear, or they're given a half-hearted support to any plans that they've heard. We've then got an avoidance of accountability. What this means is without any commitment, people will hesitate to hold themselves or others accountable. And that avoids potential conflict. What it looks like is we miss deadlines, there's poor work, broken agreements go unchallenged within the team. And finally, at the top, inattention to results. What this means is when trust and accountability break down, personal goals, the things that are important to me, outweigh the things that are important to the team. What that looks like is people start to prioritize their own status or department over the team's collective success. And if we think back to our word cloud from earlier, some of the things that were commented on there are reflected in the 5 things you see on the screen now.
Okay, so we run lots of workshops, as you can imagine, with teams all around the world, and this is one of the templates that we use. And what we're trying to do here is help teams socialize the challenges using real examples. And like Lencioni, we start from the bottom up. So absence of trust, without trust, team members don't feel safe being vulnerable. And that's preventing these emotional bonds, this trust of the heart emerging, leaving people feeling isolated and unsupported. So what we need to do is we need to help them build effective trust by encouraging openness and empathy. Leaders should model vulnerability, admitting mistakes, showing that authenticity, and inspiring others to do the same. In terms of fear of conflict, healthy conflict requires cognitive trust, believing that each other's competence and intentions are coming from the right place. Without it, disagreements feel personal or even threatening. So the solution here is to emphasize shared goals and highlight everyone's expertise. This shifts conflict to solving problems and not about questioning individuals, perhaps even point scoring. And then you look at lack of commitment, and we're kind of playing in both arenas here, both cognitive and affective, because commitment does I need to trust that you've got a plan and you know what you're doing, but I also need to trust that you're bought into this. And without them, people won't fully support decisions. Building cognitive trust, make those decisions clear, make them inclusive, and build effective trust by involving everyone in the planning, where practical that means. But also those that do get involved, show that their input is valued, appreciate their contribution to the cause. And then you've got, in terms of avoidance of accountability, I should say. Well, this requires trust on both sides again. This is both cognitive and affective, because without either, people will avoid accountability, they'll dodge conflict, or become very defensive. And the solution here is about strengthening that affective trust so that feedback feels safe. Reinforce the cognitive trust by setting clear expectations and showing how accountability actually benefits them. And then again, at the top of the pyramid, we've got this inattention to results, which, same again, it impacts both sides of the triangle that Francis Frey talks about. Teams lose focus on results when personal agendas outweigh collective goals. Success depends on cognitive trust, this belief in the team's competence, and the affective trust, which is about our shared purpose and belonging. So the solution here is build effective trust by celebrating team wins and fostering an emotional investment. Build cognitive trust by tracking progress and showing how everybody's contribution is helping us to move forward and to drive the success that we're looking to achieve.
So let's move on to look at the organizational context and a phrase you've probably heard of psychological safety. And this is kind of more from the cultural side of things. So Amy Edmondson discovered psychological safety in her research. She was looking and she found in a hospital team that a team with the highest error rate had the lowest patient mortality rates. So the question then is, how can a team that makes more errors be safer? Well, actually, of course, they weren't making more errors. They felt safe reporting their errors and then going on to work and fixing them. And this is what psychological safety is all about. It's pivotal to growth. It's pivotal to improvement, but it takes work. And it's no secret you may well have come across psychological safety from some work that Google did. And it's no secret that they discovered psychological safety was the most crucial element of their own high-performing teams.
So
let's start with what psychological safety isn't then. So what is it not? Well, it's not an excuse for poor performance. We're not getting away with things that easy. So it's not about just letting people get away with stuff. It's not about being comfortable. And we'll explore this a little bit more in a second or two. We've got to be able to give feedback. If not, how will we know when we're doing great? How will we know when we need to change what we're doing or how we're going about things? We already know from the Lencioni work we've mentioned that avoidance of accountability becomes a problem. And we can't let people off the hook. So again, psychological safety isn't about letting people off the hook. Whatever you promote within an organization is what you're allowing and what you permit to happen. And I think it's important that psychological safety, it's a journey, it's not a destination. It's not a fad, it's not an initiative we can move on from. Trust is fundamental. It's like 101 in the foundations of great teams. And finally, nothing worthwhile is ever easy. Psychological safety is no different. It takes effort, it takes commitment, and it needs revisiting from time to time. And culture, it's said to be how we behave when no one is watching.
Thanks, Graham. So in our experience, psychological safety exists somewhere between this kind of spectrum, if you like, somewhere between fear and comfort, almost bordering on friendship. But we do want people to feel safe so that they can speak up. We want them to be able to be vulnerable and admit mistakes without fear of repercussions or consequences. But we don't want them so comfortable that there's no accountability attached to it. So again, when you lean on the work of Lencioni, we want our teams built on trust, happy to challenge each other for the greater good, not concerned with ruffling feathers just because it feels difficult. It's because their intent comes from the right place, committed to the cause and connected to the purpose at an organizational level and a personal level. We want to take accountability to do what they say they will on time and at the right quality, and to deliver results, to set clear goals and go and deliver them. And leaders, we should be focusing on building an enabling culture where its foundations are actually underpinned by psychological safety. We certainly don't want to see fear and blame, nor discourage ideas and views that may help us solve a problem or innovate. And we want to avoid teams feeling stuck in these surface level discussions on what we already know, because this leads to poor decisions and strained relationships. So let's be more inclusive, let's be more open, let's learn from failure, because that's going to enable us to move forward and move forward together. Do you want to pick this one up, Graham?
Yep, thanks, Ricky. So when in the work that we do with organizations, when we work with organizations that are looking to build trust and psychological safety, we label the different cultures we see using we're big fans of 2x2 grids because we think they're easy to work and easy to understand. So what we have is, if we think about kind of the ownership culture that organizations have on a scale from low to high, where down one end people aren't taking ownership at all, there's blame, etc., all the way through to we own everything, we want to own things, we're passionate about that. And then we look on the other angle of psychological safety, again using kind of a similar low to high scale. What we see is we recognize there are 4 different zones. Down in the bottom left here, as you see, we've got what we call the stop zone. Nothing gets done. We don't trust leaders, we don't trust colleagues, and therefore we see risk of doing things as being too high. So if the risk is too high, we don't do anything. Then there's a silo zone where work gets done, but individuals and teams do it in isolation. And we see a lot of organizations where silo working is really common. Perhaps that trusting that others will help, expect actually what will happen is they'll interfere and limit our own performance. What we've then got is a slow zone where we're more cautious. We seek assurance as we go. There's a lack of courage to go and make stuff happen. Some are prepared to own it, but bottlenecks emerge as we hide in the shadows of kind of a brave few people. And finally, we've got the speed zone. The speed zone is the perfect blend of ownership and trust. We feel it's safe to experiment, we test, we fail, we do all that safe in the knowledge that our leaders and colleagues have our back.
Oh, I've gone too far. So we have a question for you. So thinking about your team, and this team can be, you set the context, you set the frame. This might be the big team that you exist in, your department, might be how you see the organization, or it could be your own intact team, if you like. So thinking about your team, back on the Slido quiz, if you've not closed the window last time, it should still be open. If you have, then don't worry, just use the QR code, you can reconnect. But what we're interested in here is thinking about your culture. What do you think you've got right now? So thinking about what Graham's just said about those 4 different versions, where do you see yourselves? Well, we've had a couple of votes so far. Any more? Must be in the build up to Christmas, very busy out there today. Okay, so we've got 2 responses, but we've got stop zone and silo zone. So that's quite interesting. We see that quite a lot, don't we, Graham? We get high performing teams that are very on their own, do their own thing. But actually, when you look at their performance in terms of the organization, it's not as high performing because they're not aligned to what the organization's trying to do. So they're very successful in their own right, but it's not necessarily adding to the greater good in terms of the way that they would hope or perceive it to be. And stop zone, we see that all the time. People just don't feel confident. They don't feel like you've got my back. Don't feel like I can take a risk because somebody's going to catch me out and somebody's going to call me out on it. Would you add anything, Graham?
I don't think so. Like I said, I think certainly the one we see that's really common, and I've worked in this a couple of times in my career as well, is where you've got that silo zone, where you've got some people who are doing it well, but they're not prepared to kind of share across the organization, across other teams for whatever reason, and often it is a lack of trust.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's move on. Thank you for that. So developing trust, as we've said several times, we're often brought in to work on trust with leaders and teams. And it's important that we always start from a safe space for them to work it through together. And quite often we'll ask teams to look for real examples inside the team and across the organization as we ask them to look across the authenticity, the logic, the empathy. And then what we do is, using those examples, we facilitate a group feedback session to look at how we can identify areas for improvement. Clearly, psychological safety is crucial to this. Part 1 of that is by having us facilitate, because we we have no skin in the game and we're independent. So our only aim here is for collective commitment to do the right thing, to improve as a team, and for leaders to step up and be role models. So the rewards for getting this right kind of are obvious in many ways, but actually there's some there's some data that comes from Harvard Business Review where teams operating in high trust environments report 76% more engagement. They report 50% higher productivity and 74% less stress, because I don't need to worry about the impact. I can feel vulnerable. We know low trust stifles creativity and the free exchange of ideas, which is crucial for innovation and adapting to any market changes. But it wasn't just HBR we looked at. We looked at a Willis Towers Watson study where organizations with high trust levels outperform low trust companies by nearly 300% in total return to shareholders over a 5-year period. Trust impacts financial metrics by influencing employee performance and customer loyalty. And according to the Edelman Trust Barometer, 81% of customers say that trusting a brand is a deciding factor in their purchasing decisions. Low trust can lead to a loss of customers and negative word of mouth, directly affecting sales and market share. So there's every reason to get trust right in your organization. But like we've said, it takes time, it takes effort. And we'll give you some access to the trust toolkit in just a second. But we've kind of come to an end of that. So coming in January, to let you know, we've got the Purposeful Leadership webinar that Graham and I will be hosting. And this is all about what we loosely call, me particularly, the Holy Trinity of clarity, purpose, and confidence. Because without them, you're leaving your success to chance. Harnessing them to drive performance is absolutely crucial. And it helps you to stay on track with the test of the Holy Trinity. So for me, it's not about being clear, or it's not just about being purposeful. It's about the relationship between all these three. And we thought in January, that's a perfect opportunity to make sure that we're there. So just before we move on, I would like to open the floor and ask if we've got any questions.
I mean, Lindsay had dropped in the chat. There was a question, but I think was answered then. But about supporting colleagues moving from stop silo zone to speed zone. But that was then covered in the following slide. But but I was going to cover off the comment you just had on the screen there. But so Lindsay felt that question had been answered. But I thought this was really interesting. The personally walking away from companies and taking customer elsewhere when there's distrust. And I must be honest, and you know, kind of my story behind this, Ricky, as well, is that I've walked away from an organization that I'd worked with for a good number of years when I felt that a shift had happened and trust had disappeared. So I think you're right. We do walk away from situations where it feels like trust isn't there. And we will go elsewhere. You know, we'll move companies as consumers, even if it costs us more money, if we feel that the relationship's been lost along the way somewhere. So if there are any other questions, let's drop them in the chat now. I know, Ricky, one of the questions we often get asked is, when trust has been broken, can it be rebuilt? And kind of, I guess, how can it be rebuilt? But what's your kind of take on that? If trust gets broken, is it irreparable, or can we build on that?
Well, the simple answer is yes, you can rebuild trust. And I think, you know, the work that Frances Frey has done kind of, she illustrates that. And that's where, ironically, her research comes from in terms of the authentic piece. We've got to be authentic. If you're not yourself, people around you will sniff it out. They'll be able to see it, and they'll see through you. So this is about, particularly as leaders, showing some vulnerability, showing some, you know, admitting mistakes, being open about where we've got stuff wrong. And then it's about building, you know, some of those, we know cognitive, the trust of the head stuff is going to be a little bit easier, because you can start demonstrating that you're leading by example. You're doing what you say you're going to do. You're following through. Your words match up with what you're saying in terms of, what your words that you're saying match up with what you're doing. So there's a consistency that will play out there. And over time, people will trust you. It's not a light switch moment, but it takes some time. And then you can absolutely support that in terms of the effective trust, the trust of the heart stuff, by taking time with people, with your people, to listen. And I mean, really listen. And I mean, understand them and show them that you're connected by not being distracted by your laptop, by your phone, or whatever it might be, you know, focusing on them and their needs, not yours and your needs. So when you start the conversation with what can I get out of this, you're already losing. And the authenticity challenge will be lost, and people are going to go, well, so it does need effort and it can be done, but I think everything starts with some introspection and go, what can I do about this?
Yeah, and actually, Lindsay's just dropped in another question there. If both parties lack the ability to see there's an issue with trust, specifically we're using an example that I just mentioned, is it helpful to have a mediator? How involved should they be supporting someone through it? I think Lindsay, mediators, third parties can be really helpful. Well, assuming they come with an unbiased view to things. If you've got a mediator that supports one side rather than the other, I think that you're still going to have a challenge. But yeah, mediators can be helpful. They can help kind of individuals see things from the other person's perspective.
And I think Lindsay, that's a really important point. I think the other thing a mediator is going to do is they're going to take the emotion out of it.
Yeah.
Because inevitably, as we did some work on mindset, our emotions are going to be stronger than our logical, more reasoned argument, and therefore we feel like this is important and they're not listening and therefore they should be doing something about it. And often that clouds our ability to see properly with this. So some great questions. So conscious of time, we've got about 5 minutes left. Of course, if there's any other questions, feel free, drop them in the chat, because we'd love to hear them. And Lindsay, thank you for your contribution today. That's really, really valuable. We appreciate that. So just reminder, back in January, we've got another one coming up. So anybody who's registered for this, will automatically let you know, give you the time and the date around that. And for those who don't already follow us, we want to know why not. No, seriously. We've got loads of content available out in the ether. We've got our company page at Think in Focus on LinkedIn. We have a monthly newsletter where we promote the ideas, the theories, the concepts, so that we want to make our content as widely accessible to as many leaders and managers as we can, so that we can help you to be the best that you can. And then we've got our YouTube channel packed with content. In fact, today's webinar will be logged, recorded, and stored on there for you to go back and revisit should you want to. And we've just passed a milestone of 100,000 subscribers. So we're really, really delighted on that. But we talked about the toolkit, right? So we have available to you the Trust Toolkit. You can access that here. So there's a link on screen. Again, we'll make this link available to anybody who's registered for the webinar. But essentially, this is the 3 steps that we took you through. So step 1 is a personal reflection piece, and that starts any building or rebuilding of trust. Step 2, it's how do we look at the dysfunctions of a team, again using real examples and how that plays out, before then moving into trust in departments. So this is more of the cultural stuff that Graham talked about around psychological safety. And in your toolkit, you've got 2 versions of this. What do the team think? And what do the management think? And then it's about comparing and contrasting those. And we do that a lot. And the great thing is, when we do it, is, like I say, we have no agenda. So therefore, we can be objective and we can be challenging on both sides of the argument equally. And then you'll see here, there's an email address, a subject and a body of an email ready for you. As it's Christmas, Graham and I have come up with basically an offer that says the first 10 people to email hello. When I say people, I'm not sure who else would be emailing. I'm not sure. Reindeer.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Rudolph might. But what we're offering 10 people some free time to help you with coaching your team around building trust, boosting trust within that. So it's only open to the first 10 who respond, and Graham and I will then reach out and book that in for you. So if you want some help, then we suggest you capture that pretty sharpish and email us, and we'd love to be in a position where we give you some time to help you boost and improve the trust on your team. The Trust Toolkit, as you can see on the banner at the bottom of the screen, that's available at that link there. So feel free to tap into that, and we'll make sure that that's available. In fact, I think I can pop that in the chat for you right now. So let's see if I can do that. There you go. So there's the link to the Trust Toolkit. So make the most of that. We design it because we want to get as many people as possible improving how they manage and lead their teams. And that's it from us. We have one thing to add in that we would like to wish you and yours a very Merry Christmas, all the festive well wishes that we can extend, and a wonderful 2025. So we'd love to thank you for tuning in. We've finished bang on 2:15, which is a first for me, so that's good. That must be Graham's influence. Thank you, Graham. So thank you to Graham. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. Like I say, Merry Christmas and a very happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. See you in 2025.